Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I step out my front door, and deliver an episode to you while I walk the dog. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good morning, listeners. It's a cloudy, slightly rainy looking day here in suburban Chicago. It's the kind of day where you can tell it's going to rain, but it's not raining right now. In fact, it has rained earlier in the day. Ground is wet and there's lots of puddles and such, but it isn't raining right now, and it isn't supposed to rain anytime in the next, say, couple hours. So from that perspective, it's a great time to walk the dog because I am not getting rained on. There are still plenty of cicadas. I don't know if you can hear them going, bah, bah. So we'll see how long it takes me to get dive bombed today. Hopefully it doesn't happen too quickly. Well, for today's episode, I thought I would talk, it's been a little while since I've checked out the past, looked at the past. So it's time for a 400 back. Today I decided I would do an episode of my Look Back series. The Look Back series is where I check my archives and I look 400 episodes back, which is roughly 4 years ago, to see what I was doing in the podcast at that time and comment on the material that appeared there. So 400 episodes ago would be episode 224, because if I'm counting right, this is episode 624. This might be 625, in which case, oops, but whatever. I'm doing oh no, it is 625. Shoot. Well, whatever. So I'm looking at episode 224, which was a shooting from the hip triple shot. For those of you newer to the podcast, I used to call my quick review segment Shooting from the Hip, triple shot. Shooting from the hip, referring to the old phrase, meaning that you're answering off the cuff. You're saying something without thinking too carefully about it. It comes from an old, like a gunslinger term, or that if you shoot from the hip, your aim isn't as good, but it's a quicker reaction. Having said that, at some point in the last couple of years, I decided, with gun violence getting so extreme in the United States, I didn't really want my theme to be about just a gun metaphor. Didn't feel like I really needed to use that as my way of shaping what's been going on. So instead, I'm now calling it Board Game Espresso Triple Shot. Still using 3 shots, and now it's have a little coffee and talk about what happened last night, or recently. Ooh, Lady with the Dog update. I don't know if you recall the last couple episodes, or at least the last episode, I mentioned seeing a woman out walking with her little dog in a backpack that she's carrying on her front, and I see her today out walking. I'm really curious where she goes every day with the backpack dog. I don't know. I guess I could ask her, but instead I just enjoy walking her. Today she doesn't have a regular backpack on, only her dog backpack, or dog front pack. So episode 224 is a board game triple shot episode in which I talked about 3 games I played for the first time recently. And apparently at that point I wasn't classifying expansions and Out of Dusk games separately, because the episode was about Paper Tales, the Isle of Cats, and the Everdell Pearlbrook expansion. So I thought today I would reflect on those 3 games a little bit and the place they have in my collection, to sort of let you see how it's evolved over the last 4 years. So to start with, Paper Tales. Paper Tales is a filler weight drafting game that punches above its weight class in terms of the decisions you're making. It's an interesting drafting game where you are assembling a tableau and scoring points, but it plays in like half an hour. That said, it didn't really land all that hard with my family, and so it suffered the ignominy of leaving the collection because I didn't have room for it, more than anything, like I didn't like it. But it wasn't getting played, and such is the way of things. So I don't have Paper Tales anymore, but I thought it would be interesting to just talk a little bit about what kind of drafting games I do have. Which games would I play were I in a drafting mood? So here I am talking about drafting in the pick and pass variety. There are, of course, multiple ways that you can draft. There's drafting from a market. There are lots of games that do that, but the pick and pass variety, I find, is the most direct correlation, and still the gold standard, bar none winner for me in that category is 7 Wonders. I love 7 Wonders. I love seeing it on the table. I love playing it. I think it's endlessly interesting. I don't even have any expansions for it. I just think it's an actually excellently crafted system that's really fun to play. But I do have some other pick and pass drafting games that I think are equally interesting or good. So I thought I would talk about those a little bit. If you want something on the lighter end, of course, Sushi Go is the winner of that category. Sushi Go being like the subtitle of it on the box is the pick and pass game. So if you're trying to teach someone this mechanism without having to spend a lot of time on it, Sushi Go would be the way to do it. This is a game that is just about that mechanism, and it's a much lighter version of the model than Seven Wonders, which involves a fairly complicated scoring scheme and is a real challenge for a lot of players. The middle ground between those two, and a game that I think is pretty dang good, is It's a Wonderful World. It's a Wonderful World, I think when I reviewed it, I said something like, it solves the problems of Seven Wonders, which in retrospect, nah, it doesn't. It has its own issues, its own way of wrestling with the questions that Seven Wonders tries to answer. The big thing that I like It's a Wonderful World doing that Seven Wonders doesn't is it has multiple ways for you to use the cards. In Seven Wonders, if you get a hand of cards you don't want, you're kind of stuck. I guess you can turn in for money, but that's a poor substitute for a card that's really useful. In It's a Wonderful World, all the cards are presumed to serve a money purpose or a construction purpose. There's a bit more utilitarianism there, and it's interesting to have to make that decision. In Seven Wonders, it always feels like a letdown when you have to turn in a card for money. In It's a Wonderful World, that's an expected part of the mechanism. So I do like that part better. I'm trying to think if I have any other games where you're drafting your hand. I guess the beginning of Res Arcana has some pick and pass drafting, but one, you don't have to do it that way. That is the way I prefer to play. But it's also not central to the play of the game. Like it is a crucial part. Building a little machine from the cards you draft is a crucial part of the game, but ultimately that's not what the game's about. So those are the three I can think of off the top of my head. So yeah, that's Paper Tales is no longer in my collection, but I still do have at least 3 pick and pass drafting games that are all pretty darn good. Oh, maybe the fourth one I'll say is Between Two Cities, which is an excellent game, I think, where you are trying to build a little city, actually 2 little cities that both score as many points as possible, and you get the score of the lower valued one when you get to the end. So it works out really well. I love it. All right, so that is Paper Tales. Next up is the Isle of Cats. The Isle of Cats is a game I came to sort of sideways. The first time I played it, I saw people playing it, and I don't think I was that keen on it, but I saw a couple other reviews. I thought, oh, this actually might be a good fit for our family. And the theme is right up my alley in terms of being about, about kitty cats on pirate ships. That's a really fun theme. And that actually, now that I think about it, that game also has pick and pass drafting. It doesn't feel like that's the only mechanism, that's just part of it. Actually, a lot of people criticize that part of it. I think that's a crucial and interesting part of the game, but whatever. Yeah, Isle of Cats is the thing. Since then, they have come out with a number of expansions, and I did go in on the Isle of Cats big box and got a couple of the expansions that way. So we now have all the goodies for Isle of Cats. I think there was one level of premium upgrade I did not get that seemed excessive to me, so I skipped that. But the other stuff we have gotten, and I do enjoy. And so the 3 expansions that we've had, there's new ships, and I really like this one because it adds a little variety to the gameplay. If you've played a bunch of times, the ship, it's the same ship every time, right? So you're wrestling with the same question. Do you go in the front and try to complete a couple small rooms, or do you go in the back and try to complete a bigger room? You know, the tile placement challenge is the same in each of those boards. Well, in the new ships expansion, then there are a couple different ships that you can choose from. And so then there's just a bit more flexibility in terms of what the game feels like. You know, any game that you're going to play a bunch of times, sometimes will get a little stale, or at least it will feel like you kind of understand what the choices are for different pieces. And then it's a different kind of interest, but if part of your interest is novelty, having the board be the same every time is counter to that. So having a couple different options is fun. We also have the Kittens and Beasts expansion, and the new arrivals, which is just like more cat cards, or a variety of different cards to go into the deck. But the Kittens and Beasts, I really like both of those. The Kittens are these tiny little 1 or 2 spot cats that you can get that add a bit of variety to the procedure, though they're very cute. And then they have the Beasts expansion, which you have some big cats, and they score in different ways. And so having both of those available, I generally wouldn't recommend playing with both of those at the same time. I think it adds a little too much cruft then. You're keeping track of too many different things. But picking one of those to play with on any given game day is pretty fun. You know, I think Isle of Cats has also just held up really well to plays over time. We do have a number of other sort of polyomino shape games. We've got Patchwork if we want a 2-player experience. We've got Barren Park, which still remains a favorite, and I think I actually like Barren Park better than the Isle of Cats, particularly if you're using the expansion. But the general vibe of the Isle of Cats is really particular. I love the artwork on it. And frankly, I got Isle of Cats Draw and Write, and I don't like it as much. Well, one, my wife doesn't like it as much, so that's a huge no thank you. And I do really like the grid of cards selection mechanism, and I do like the roll and write aspect of it. I'm not going to get rid of it, and I'm looking forward to playing it some more. That said, I definitely like the Isle of Cats better. Like if I'm going to do that, I want to pick up the tile with the cat. I don't want to draw the cat. And so that distinction is really crucial. I do, however, so we did get the Draw and Write game. At first I had, because he did a print and play version of it during COVID, and I had put all the stuff for that into our Isle of Cats set. So if we wanted to play the Draw and Write game, we could just using the regular Isle of Cats set. It is nice to have this separate game and separate box. If we want to take the Draw and Write with us, it's easy to do. But in terms of polyomino games, the Isle of Cats is still among the top that I really enjoy. That said, I have really enjoyed the other Phil Walker Harding tile placement games. Particularly, I do like Llama Land as a variant or an alternate to Barren Park in terms of having the option of getting those games played, getting a little variety. That one activates in a little different way. It asks you to think about things in a little different way. And I think from those perspectives, it works really well. So that's the Isle of Cats. Frank West is the distributor there. City of Games, I believe, is the name of his publishing company. All right, finally, in episode 224, I did a brief review of our first experience with Everdell Pearlbrook, and since then, more expansions have come out. We've acquired all the expansions. We have the Everdell big box, which holds all of the stuff and becomes really elaborate and interesting when we are playing Everdell. I do like having the huge variety of expansions available. I think Everdell is best played with one expansion at a time. I think if you try to mix in more than one expansion, it gets a little overwhelming. The Pearlbrook expansion is really nice because it adds one more worker who can only go to this one space, and adds cards that go there and things that go there. It adds one more currency, gives you the flexibility to do that, or you can kind of ignore that, which actually works really nicely because sometimes if you could play Pearlbrook with a newer player and not get too overwhelmed. And I really like that about Pearlbrook, is that it's relatively self-contained and there's not a whole lot extra going on when you play it over some of the more elaborate expansions. That said, I have yet to dislike one of the Everdell expansions. I enjoy all of them for a variety of things that they do. So I thought I would go through them a little bit and talk about them. Now, I'm not a huge expert in the Everdell expansions. I've played them, most of them, but I don't remember all of them in great detail until it's time to play them. And then when I get them out, I look at them like, oh yeah, that's that one. So if I make any mistakes, feel free to head over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and let me know in the comments. But I'm sort of being upfront about the fact that I don't remember them all perfectly. So the first one we played was Belfair, or after Pearlbrook. So Pearlbrook is the one that has the Pearl board. It has the Ambassador, which is a little frog shape, and it has the Pearls, which is a separate currency that you can use in a variety of ways. Next up they have, and so it also has like these treasures that you can get that you have to buy with pearls. and the pearls themselves are worth points. So that's the ebb and flow of that. Belfair adds a variety of different scoring conditions, but also changes the tree. You take the tree out and you put in this other thing as well, so it adds a little bit different flavor. There is something else. I think Belfair maybe is also the one that gives individual player powers, and we haven't really used those yet. So that is the expansion we've explored least of the ones we've played. I will also say Mistwood we haven't played at all. So there is an expansion called Mistwood. I believe a significant part of it is the solo engine, which we haven't tried, or I haven't tried, but we haven't played Mistwood. We have, however, played Spirecrest, and I really liked Spirecrest. It has two modules. One, you get these giant meeples, or you can, and those have a special effect that when you place them. More importantly, they are just giant meeples that your other meeples can ride, or your other pieces can ride, and they come with a little plastic saddle, so you actually put your other piece on the giant piece and ride it around. It's very cute. So I really like that from a table perspective. But then more importantly, Spirecrest also comes with this really great traveler module. And the way that works is you have this little traveler. At one point during your turn, you can pay some resources and have the traveler move forward. And when they do, they get some resources, they draw some cards, they reveal some things, and it just adds this extra flavor to the game. Gives you a little boost for doing that, but it also adds a little variety too. There is also a weather portion that changes place slightly. So this fits in like with the Isle of Cats expansions I was talking about, where it just gives you a little bit different stuff to think about and to try, and create some variety there. I really like that. That's Spirecrest. And then the New Leaf expansion, I really like. It's got a train that comes into Everdell Station, and the train, again, adds another way to get resources, but then you also get these sort of bonuses, and that really elevates the game, I think. It makes, I really liked New Leaf when we tried it, and we've only tried it the once, but I think it's an excellent addition to the game, and I'm looking forward to playing that more. So like I said, we haven't tried Mistwood. We also do have the big box, and I think the big box is a mixed blessing. On one hand, it's nice to have everything sort of contained in really nice pieces and really nice organizers. But on the other hand, it's huge and does have some downsides. It makes it harder to take the game with you because it's huge and unwieldy. But it also adds to setup because it's got all of this stuff. That said, it adds to setup because you have all this stuff, and that would still be true if I just had the expansions in their individual boxes. I suppose if I kept them all in their individual boxes, then it could be like Ticket to Ride, where we want to play Ticket to Ride Africa, we grab the Ticket to Ride box and the Africa box, and all the other stuff just stays on the shelf. We don't have to bring it with. Whereas this one, you have to bring it with. And if I want to go somewhere with my copy of Everdell, either I have to make sure I have a car and I'm not going to be walking too far because I have this giant box, or I have to do some sort of negotiated repackaging before I leave, where I put stuff in, and then I can see myself. One, it's not really set up to do that. Two, I could totally see myself leaving one set of things that I really need in the box because I forgot them. So I don't think I would do that, which means it's slightly less portable. That's my reflections on the Everdell Big Box. And that ends my reflections on episode 224, your current 400 look back, 400 back. Well, I'm curious to know, what do you think of those changes? How do you play any of these games? Please let me know over on Board Game Geek and Guild 3269, or you can drop me an email, brendan@rattleboxgames.com. I would love to hear from you and share my thoughts on what we were doing. That brings me to the end of my walk. So I want to say thanks for joining me on my walk. I hope your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.